Hello and welcome to the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined as always by Mr. Bo Brock. We've got Damien Anderson, the pride of Northwestern, former Arizona Cardinal running back, joining us. Gentlemen, minicamp is in the books. We have our sights set on training camp, but that's still upwards of 5-6 weeks away. And yet here we are on a Monday discussing the availability or lack thereof of one of the Arizona Cardinals' marquee positions. But before we get to that, how's that for a teaser? Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Great, man. Good little weekend. Celebrated my kid's first birthday. I took your advice, Johnny. There was no, opening of the gifts in front of a large crowd and making people just kind of sweat that one out. But it was a great time. Really enjoyed myself. But yeah, now I'm with our guy, our GM Bookman. We're ready to be heard again.
Johnny, just a chill weekend and enjoying the day. Happy Juneteenth, and just keeping it moving.
Happy Juneteenth.
Yeah, just keeping it moving, and anytime I get with the fam, always quality.
Yes, absolutely. Well, welcome everybody, and again, happy Juneteenth here on the 20th of June. And let's pick up where we left off last week as more information becomes available. Shameless plug, article on GoPHNX.com filed earlier today regarding the status, or the uncertain status, I should say, of one Rodney Hudson, all-pro center that was acquired last offseason for a third-round pick. He got his extension, and now, gentlemen, he is MIA. The more we hear about this information, the less promising it looks like that Rodney Hudson will be a member of the Arizona Cardinals this fall. Now, the nuggets that I heard over the weekend and then a little bit this morning were that this is kind of DEFCON 5. This is confirming it's not a scenario in which he wants more money, right? He's due $10 million. This year's $10 million cap hit. It's not a scenario of he just wanted to take minicamp off to get his body right. And I think we kind of dispelled both of those, Bo, last week when we talked about, we don't see Cliff Kingsbury that animated unless there's cause. And the more and more I hear, it looks like it's his final day has passed as an Arizona Cardinal. He's played his final snap for this team, at least in my opinion right now.
Yeah, we didn't see anger. We didn't see, we'll see even Cliff Kingsbury. He loves to drop that one. Just we'll see how things play out. We didn't even hear that from Cliff Kingsbury. He said it was an excuse. He was pretty frank as far as, Rodney Hudson not being there. But we also saw frustration. We saw body language of frustration from a guy who's known as being a player's coach, and then maybe a player just pushing that just too far. And not in the case of, hey, he's not showing up to minicamp because there's nobody he's going to battle out for a spot and he's just going to try to preserve that body. No, he's late in the game telling this organization that he's not going to play. Like, he's done. You're going to move. You're going to have to move on without me. Your former Pro Bowl center is no longer going to be wearing that number 61, and you got to find somebody else to snap Kyler Murray the football this season.
I mean, guys, I think that we all thought that was the one piece of, I would say, serenity, right, when it came to the offensive line in terms of protecting Kyler Murray, right? There were some pieces, holes, COVID year, a lot of, question marks where you could just throw a rational answer at. But not having Rodney Hudson, what he means, as you guys just said, all the facts, right? Signed him in the offseason, third-round pick, and he was due $10 million. And if he doesn't show up, it's going to have a trickle-down effect. I mean, it's an aw damn moment for everyone associated with the team. I mean, don't get me wrong, being in the trenches, it's next man up. But we all know the difference between an all-pro center versus a second or a third string guy. And right now they have no one on the depth chart. So it's a big hole. Hopefully it's a situation where he just shows up at training camp and we don't have to worry about it. Hopefully that is what it is, Johnny. And we're like, shame on us. All is in the past. We're all happy. However, it doesn't seem like that's where it's trending towards.
Yeah, I want to be wrong, but this looks more and more like another Robert Alford scenario in which he retires and abruptly. I mean, the Cardinals weren't expecting that during the preseason. Malcolm Butler, I'm sorry, not Robert Alford. And Malcolm Butler retired abruptly and then has come out of retirement and is playing for the Patriots. Now, I don't know if Rodney Hudson, we've got a long way to go before that's the same scenario, but mean, the Cardinals have Rodney Hudson under contract for the next 2 years. Malcolm was under contract for 1 year, which is why he was set free to the free agency pool, and the Patriots got to sign him. But I mean, like, you're walking away. He's got $10 million and $8 million due each of the next 2 seasons, $18 million. Like, he's playing for a players coach in Cliff Kingsbury. Justin Pugh talked about it. He was at his bachelor party, his wedding. Like, he's close to the guys in the locker room. So to me, it like speaks more of a couple different things. And I outlined it in my article, gentlemen. It's either he's clashing with the organization. Maybe he's clashing with Kingsbury, Sean Kugler, which seems a little bit far-fetched, but it could happen, right? Or he's just not happy in Arizona. Now, I find that hard to believe because he spent the last several years of his career flourishing in California on a bad Raider team that never sniffed the playoffs. So is it just one of those scenarios in which, and you've got to respect Rodney if this is the case, like his body is breaking down and he feels like, I want to be around for my kids. And we heard Kelvin Beachum in that interview last week, I believe with Arizona Sports with Wolfley, say he's got to do right by his kids. Is that a scenario in which we're seeing a lot of these players, once they hit their early 30s, Bo, they're saying, I've made enough money. I don't need to have my brains beat in, for lack of a better term, for the next, half decade. I'm going to get out now. I'm good to go. Thank you, Cardinals. But again, just the status and the emotion and the body language of Cliff Kingsbury last week, we're missing something here, but I believe where there's smoke, there's fire, and that fire is a pending retirement with Rodney Hudson.
I mean, it was defeat. And it was this is very reminiscent of how the regular seasons have gone. It's not finishing strong. It's not trending the right direction as when you want to going in the training camp, and you've got the top paid center in the NFL just saying, I'm good. I'm gonna walk away for whatever reason. And that's a big issue that the news is coming down a month and a half before training camp, because like the silver lining here is like Steve Keim is going to have a ton of money to kind of figure out what he wants to do, but he's only going to be able to shop at Goodwill or like the blue light special at Walmart. Like he's going bargain bin with a blank check. Unfortunately, it's brutal. Billy Price, a guy that's been tied to this team, former first round pick, Bengals, Giants, like those are not two teams you want to pick up, the scraps from. JC Tretter, probably a better option, a guy who played pretty high level for the Browns, but he was penalized at the center position last year. Like Cardinals friends, like that's a 4-letter where you don't want to hear that you got a heavily penalized center because of what they saw from Mason Cole before. Rodney Hudson, you thought was going to come back and solidify the position. So here's the biggest thing as far as the Arizona Cardinals go. Like I don't think that Justin Pugh is a realistic option for the Cardinals at center, size. And the fact that the biggest, most important thing is snapping the football. We saw how brutal it was, even with Rodney Hudson snapping the football. This was a team that was second in the NFL as far as shotgun snaps. They got to find somebody that's going to be comfortable in snapping the football, Damien. 86% of their snaps were taken out of the shotgun. You got to find somebody that's more comfortable shooting at about 7 yards or 5 yards instead of a guy, giving the ball under center to Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to churn that roster and find somebody to come in. As you mentioned, Bo, I don't necessarily know that Pugh is the guy. As Beachum, mentioned, hey, it may be more than football. Maybe he's trying to preserve his body. But one thing that we have to obviously annotate, take back as dads, one, and then take back as, doing your job, this is more than the game. I mean, right now, if guys on the team are talking about that, I think we need to take a step back, in terms of, hey, as a fan, we're pissed off, but we don't know that there's context and circumstances to everything. And I think the context is that the timing sucks as an Arizona Cardinals fan. Yeah. As Bo mentioned, there's, maybe monies that Steve Keim can go and try and find, some, put those draft skills to work and get a quality guy in here that can do the job, right? And that you can get, make Kyler feel comfortable, because I think we all know that Kyler can mitigate a lot of this, but losing Rodney is huge. And I mean, it wasn't like he played the entire season, so they know what to expect, maybe a little bit from the combination they have at offensive line.
I love this comment. Pocket full of Eno Benjamins. Great name, by the way. Man, there ain't no centers available out there either. We're going to end up with a Pottery Barn center. Well, Pottery Barn, I don't know where you're shopping, my friend. Pottery Barn, premium prices, premium products. Now, if we're talking TJ Maxx, if we're talking Ross, if we're talking Five Below, then yes, then that's not a good sign. Now, as Jalen Blair says in the chat, JC Tretter over 1,000 snaps with 5 penalties, 1 sack given up. He's got an 83.7 PFF pass block and a 74.8 run block. He started for the Cleveland Browns last year. He is
We'll
the
take
bell of the
it.
ball right now.
We'll take
Yes,
it.
we will
As he
take it.
said.
31 years
Yes.
old. I don't know if you're Steve Keim and we get confirmation, because we're not confirming anything on this podcast. We are reading the tea leaves. I'm telling you what we're hearing, that if you ask me today what is Rodney Hudson's future with this team, I would say zilch. I would say he's going to retire. And so, yeah, you better go and say, hey, JC Treader, take $10 million. We need you to come play football for us. But it's also bears repeating, like, why isn't JC Treader signed? Could he not pass a physical? Does he not want to play football? As Bo mentioned, like, you're not getting the bell of the ball. If Rodney Hudson, let's just put it in perspective, if Rodney Hudson was made available in March and hit the free agent wire, he would be one of the first free agents signed. And we saw Corey Linsley, and almost the identical age last offseason, get paid by the LA Chargers. I think what is also concerning, gentlemen, is you mentioned that, situation with Justin Pugh and he's retiring. And then you've got Rodney Hudson's status. Let's just call it uncertain. And thanks, somebody brought it up in the chat. I think it was Ella15. Yeah, our only O-line we have signed past the season is Josh Jones. The header of the show today is who's to blame for the Rodney Hudson scenario. I think an additional question we need to ask is, who's to blame for the lack of developing quality offensive linemen, pipeline offensive linemen, that you're not beholden to veterans who can seemingly take your offseason by hostage here, for lack of a better term, right? I think part of the reason that Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim made a conscious effort, I think this March, to say, we're done giving big multi-year contracts to older players. One, because they said it doesn't work. It doesn't pan out in terms of production, but look at what they've been burned recently. And I would love for this organization to start drafting and developing better. But like Bo, we're the high picks on offensive linemen that the Cardinals can say, well, at least we've got a stud right guard. At least we've got a stud right tackle. I mean, Tyler Lindenbaum and Tristan Wirfs look pretty good right about now, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, I mean Lindenbaum's already, he's penciled in as the starting center for the Baltimore Ravens going forward, and he's the future. Along with, they want to lock up their franchise quarterback as well. But yeah, I mean there hasn't been enough done, which isn't it odd? Isn't it one of the weirdest things, Damien, like that Steve Keim, an offensive lineman himself, has struggled mightily to scout the position and draft the position and bring in guys that they can lock up long-term. Because what was it? It's DJ Humphries. He's on his second deal. Bobby Massey, I think, at one point signed his second deal. But outside of that, you can't find anybody that Steve Keim has drafted and developed. And when you're looking to point the finger at somebody, I think that Steve Keim is the guy that's just struggled. I think he was he snake bitten from Jonathan Cooper? Because, and here's the thing about Jonathan Cooper. He was one of the safest prospects in this draft. This was Keim's first draft in 2013. He was 7th overall. He comes out of North Carolina. He's the highest drafted guard since like 1986. And he looked like an absolute animal in preseason.
Generational.
And then snapped his leg. He had a freak injury, and he was just never the same. It wasn't that he couldn't compete at this level. It's the poor kid suffered a brutal injury and just was never the same. I wonder if Steve Keim just kind of felt like, look, I tried it. There aren't all the fish in the sea. I'm one and done as far as drafting an offensive lineman. I wish he would get back out there, because he took a Swiss Army knife in Isaiah Simmons, 8th overall, instead of a couple can't miss guys in Tristan Wirfs and who was it, Jedrick Wills and a couple other guys
As you guys all know, hindsight is always 2020. But we could look back, and look at around the league, right? What's the percentage of the salary based on offensive linemen? And I think that we've seen it in a lot of places where you spend money heavily on outside your quarterback and maybe some defensive pressure guys, and teams aren't allocating those funds towards offensive linemen. Johnny, I absolutely agree in terms of, hey, development, having depth. I mean, having nobody there to replace Rodney Hudson, knowing that he's getting, somewhat long in the tooth. I think that falls directly on Steve Keim.
There aren't any centers on the roster. Bo, you were just saying it before the show. They don't have anybody else.
But I guarantee you they're thinking schematic wise and having Cliff Kingsbury offensively, hey, there's a ratio of in which we get the ball out. Hey, by that time, the offensive lineman only has to do X, Y, and Z, right? So they're not investing a lot of money. Only when times like this come up, which happens how often. You know what I mean? Maybe it's, given the concerns of the game, maybe it is more often, but I guarantee you they're thinking, hey, we got Rodney locked down, guys, and we're going to be okay for the next couple of years. Yeah. And unfortunately, here we are.
And I don't want to sit here and say hindsight 2020 with this move, because I love this move. I commended it when it happened. It was praised by all of the national media, because you're getting a top 3 center in the NFL, even at age, 30, 31, when they acquired him, at a relatively low cost for a team that wanted to compete for,
but I was talking about the draft, the
right.
Draft
no, and I'm with
so.
you. Yeah. Like the players who would have been available. But we've seen, like, Keim makes his money on acquiring Pro Bowl players for picks, right? Yeah. Chandler Jones and D-Hop and Zach Ertz last year. I mean, he's got a good track record. But, I mean, now we've seen 2 consecutive off seasons, we think, where a player is not going to make it to start the season that they otherwise had penciled in. And now you go potentially into August and September. Last year, I don't know if we talked about this on Friday's show, but it bears repeating. If so, the top 5 players on this roster last year, notwithstanding Kyler Murray and Budda Baker, would have included Chandler Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rodney Hudson. Now you're going to kick off against the Kansas City Chiefs, the perennial juggernaut of the NFL, without 3 of those 5 players. Presumably, if we assume Rodney Hudson is not going to play for the Cardinals this year, it's a disastrous scenario. And Damien brings up a great point. And it's like, somebody posted this right before the show started, and I think it's a really interesting case study. Can we just listen to Kyler Murray? Had they taken CeeDee Lamb, and people push back and say, well, you wouldn't have DeAndre Hopkins. Would you rather have DeAndre Hopkins or CeeDee Lamb today? DeAndre Hopkins did not finish the season last year. CeeDee Lamb was a Pro Bowler. DeAndre Hopkins is not going to play the first 6 games of this year and cost you $30 million, potentially. Would you rather have Rodney Hudson, or would you rather have Creed Humphreys, who coincidentally plays in Kansas City? I think you would rather have Creed Humphreys for the next 10 years in the peak of his powers, in his early to mid 20s. So it's kind of ironic where I am all for, and we didn't get it this offseason, I feel robbed outside of the Hollywood Brown trade, but I'm all for, like, splash moves, right? But goodness, if you just hit on your draft picks and you swing and you hit doubles, once in a while you're going to hit a home run. Just Steve Keim, he can't do it early enough in the draft, or I should say often enough in the draft. And I know people would rather prefer Hopkins, and I get that, and it's probably apples to oranges, but give me the younger, cheaper receiver that's on the upswing. Jalen Blair. I agree with this, Jalen. You would rather have DeAndre Hopkins today than CeeDee Lamb.
Yes.
Get the hell out of here.
Yes.
DeAndre Hopkins is 30 and he's off an injury and he's suspended. Are you guys okay?
So got the most reliable hands in the NFL.
Yes. Player versus player. Come on, don't get me wrong. CeeDee Lamb, what he does is special.
You're buying a blockbuster stock when right around the corner there's a Red Box, and you're telling me that for 1 year you're going to get premium DVDs at a discounted price.
He's always done that. He's
in 2 or 3 years, not last year and not this year.
I mean,
I love D-Hop. Well, there's a good chance we get 1 peak year from DeAndre Hopkins, the Hail Mary year. There's a good chance. Bo, you've been telling me all offseason we don't know what to expect when he comes back.
Yeah, no, we don't. But you also don't know what to expect as far as CeeDee Lamb. I mean, CeeDee Lamb was playing in a high-powered offense. He's never been the vocal point of the offense as well. He was playing maybe wide receiver 2 with a guy, maybe fringe wide receiver 2 with Michael Gallup in the same wide receiver core to Amari Cooper, who's now in Cleveland. So no, and I didn't like how CeeDee Lamb disappeared. I feel like in some big games, including the one against the Arizona Cardinals. What do you have? 1 catch for 25 yards against the Arizona Cardinals.
I mean, it was his 2nd year in the NFL. I mean,
D-Hop.
Give me the most proven commodity as far as receivers has gone in the last decade in the NFL. I mean, if anybody's going to be the exception as far as 30-year-old wideouts, I would give the edge to DeAndre Hopkins over an unproven CeeDee Lamb. Sure, he's flashed a little bit. Sure, he has a relationship with Kyler, but I'll take Hollywood Brown at this point and DeAndre Hopkins over CeeDee Lamb. I don't think
here's
I've been
ratio. That's fine.
I don't think it's like I don't think you're the hot. It's like a hot take.
Yeah.
So, but here, as you mentioned,
Johnny, it's apples to oranges. I mean,
I would say though, I mean, Chris Jones, Frank Clark, George Karlaftis coming into town week 1. Then you got Max Crosby and Chandler Jones week 2, and then you got Aaron Donald week 3. Maybe Rodney Hudson was like, F this. I'm out of here. I'm not going
It's
versus
the
that murderer's
Seinfeld
goal.
gif where he's just like this and he walks out of the theater. That was Rodney when he saw that schedule. I like the Karlaftis name drop, by the way, Bo Brock, after I shit on him all draft season. Wouldn't that be very poetic for him to come in and beat up the Cardinals week 1?
And have a
Yeah,
day.
have a day. That would be that'd be hard to stomach here. This whole thing is hard to stomach. I don't know how it affects the Cardinals over under in Vegas. We'll have to watch that line as it relates to DraftKings. Speaking of DraftKings, gentlemen, I don't know. Did you guys dabble in the NHL playoffs at all? We got the Stanley Cup Finals going on. You've been watching Avalanche. You team Avalanche?
I took your advice. That was your Money in the Bank bet on Friday, and I took it. I mean, they just destroyed them. I mean, just absolutely dog walked the poor Tampa Bay Lightning. So yeah, I'm just gonna ride that Avalanche train until they're hoisting the cup.
Producer Leah, who hosts our PHNX Coyote show, always keeps me honest with my hockey lingo. So I'm going to try to get through this read as educated as I can. She's teaching me the game. This morning, I learned what a morning skate was as it relates to maybe like a morning walkthrough in the NFL or a morning shoot around. There's a morning skate, which is interesting. If you want to bet on the Stanley Cup Finals, you can do that right now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. And when you use that promo code PHNX, new customers can bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game, Lightning or Avalanche, and get $150, excuse me, $100, not $150, just $100 in free bets, no matter what. That's code PHNX at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the Stanley Cup Final. You got to be 21 or older to gamble and to dabble on DraftKings. Arizona only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
This Rodney Hudson thing, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just going to say this Rodney Hudson thing makes you want to crack open a couple extra Four Peaks beverages. But if you do, of course, you must be 21 and older and enjoy responsibly. But we're pumped to be partnered with Four Peaks. I mean, it's our perennial Pro Bowl center, just coupling with them. They're going to set us up for success, just like he did Kyler Murray. Love the Four Peaks. I head there about every week. It's a great place to catch a game. You got, if it's not the NBA Finals, obviously in the rearview mirror, you got the NHL Stanley Cup going on, and you've got Major League Baseball and all the TVs there, and they've got they're brewing on site. It's just beautiful. You can taste all their new beers out there. You can go with the old steadies, like, of course, Hop Knot, Four Peaks Kilt Lifter. You got Raj IPA. You're an IPA guy. IPAs are delicious. They got double IPAs, triple IPAs. They've got the barrel-aged stuff. If you're a beer connoisseur, it's a place for you. Or if you just want to keep it simple, you've got the Wow, which tastes just like Blue Moon. If not, it does taste better. I had a couple of those last night. It's like, I'm going to have one. No, I'm going to have two. Because Four Peaks is unbelievable. The menu is great. It's Arizona. It's State 48. You think about Arizona, you think about Four Peaks Brewing, and we're excited to be partnered with them. Check them out, of course, in Tempe. You can check them out at the airport. You can check them out, their tap room at Chase Field downtown when you're watching a D-backs game. It's Four Peaks Brewing. Just extremely excited to be a part of their family here in the PHNX crew. I wanted to get in this conversation because Four Peaks is not a sleeper, but we've been talking about the big names on this Arizona Cardinals roster all off season long. Of course, Kyler Murray has just been monopolizing the headlines. And through that, of course, we lost in the shuffle Rodney Hudson, DeAndre Hopkins, the suspension. We know how important he is. Chandler Jones exits, Christian Kirk exits, Hollywood Brown in. Like, this is a pretty star-laden offense and roster.
Yeah.
In order for this to work, I mean, especially at the end of last year, you saw the lack of depth. Who needs to step up? And I'm not talking about the Rondell Moores. I'm not talking like maybe, the Byron Murphy Juniors. I'm talking about the guys like a little bit further down the depth chart, guys that you would consider sleepers on this roster, guys who you would probably have to, bring back to life. They're almost dead there as far as sleep. Who are some guys that you've kind of piqued some interest on this offseason through minicamp, through OTAs that you're excited about that could make an impact relative to where they are right now on the roster?
I think Hernandez is one that jumps out, just given
great pick,
just given the Rodney Hudson. But me being a running back, right? Former running
Yeah.
back. I got to go with my running backs. And I just foresee knowing what Cliff does offensively. I think that we see a package of Eno. I think 4 backs make the team because you know that Connor and you have Williams as well. But I think Keontae as well as, Benjamin, we'll see some type of package, like some 2-minute type of package where maybe they start a quarter, second quarter, a fourth quarter where they could just on the run, no huddle type of deal and create those mismatches and be able to run the football and have a mismatch out there on the perimeter or with those inside linebackers. So I just see them being creative, easy one, obviously offensive line and running back.
I like Elawan 5, says Dennis Gardeck all day. I'm going to stick at the outside linebacker position. And I'm going to go with somebody that I've kind of dogged each of the past couple seasons. Devon Kennard was basically released and brought back same day, took a monster pay cut, is making close to the vet minimum. Who does that sound like, gentlemen, from a season ago? Mr. Robert Alford. A lot of people wrote off, right? And so can he have a Robert Alford resurgence? Can he have, dare I say, a Hassan Reddick resurgence here? They seem to have a lot of confidence in Mr. Kennard, and that gives me confidence because if Vance Joseph can do anything well, he can scheme up pressure. Devon Kennard's going to start at least week 1 opposite Marcus Golden. He can play the run a little bit. He was bad against Seattle in week 18 last year. I have that vision in my head, him missing key tackles as they ran over the Cardinals. I think he will be better this year. If he gives the Cardinals like 6 to 8 sacks and solid against the run, and most importantly, helps the development of those 2 young rookie third-round outside linebackers, I think that's a quality year. It's something that Devon Kennard was brought here. He was brought here like the day after he got released from Detroit 2 offseasons ago. The Cardinals ran to the free agent market and signed him to a nice contract. They Valley native, bring him home, right? And what happened 6 months in, right? They basically put him on the bench and they acquired Marcus Golden. So can he, rise from the ashes, so to speak, and not replace Chandler Jones, but just give us something because he's been absent. He's been MIA for 2 years.
That's a big one. Yeah, I like it too. I think he has to step up, Johnny. I mean, as you said, he took a pay cut. As you mentioned, Cardinals gave him a really big deal. And considering what he did in Detroit, I was like, I know the family. I'm like, oh, that's awesome, obviously, but I had yet to be seen in terms of that pay matching that production.
Nothing against the guy, but like,
you
I
just
want him to do well. He just hasn't yet.
With big money comes big expectations, and we were all expecting, as you mentioned, 8 to 10 sacks, and you haven't seen that. So hopefully he knows the severity of the situation and makes something happen because they're going to need it. They're definitely going to need it, losing a guy like Chandler Jones defensively.
Yeah, it's going to be huge to have a veteran step it up, would just kind of set the tone and then let those younger guys just kind of narrow the focus on what they need to do in year 1. We know how tough it is to play an advanced Joseph defense when you're a rookie. And John, I don't want to get Johnny fired up on that, but I'm going to stay in the front 7. I'm going to go to the defensive line. I see Rafa, I see Jalen talking about it, and I completely Derek Fife. He nailed mine. I think Rashad Lawrence is going to be a big player for this defense. I think he's going to play a ton of snaps. I loved what I was hearing from his teammates when he was running the drills at minicamp and in OTAs, and including guys like J.J. Watt. When Rashad Lawrence was running drills, he was like, damn, like Rashad Lawrence he liked the pace he was playing at. He liked the strength that he was playing with. Rashad Lawrence looked like he was in great shape, and there, as far as opportunity goes, that nose tackle position, no Corey Peters, it seems like this year for the first time in a long time, he's going to get the first crack at it. I do like Lecky Fotu. I think he's a monster. I love his athleticism and strength, but I think Rashad Lawrence has the edge over him to play that nose tackle position. Is probably built better for it. So I think that could be the guy. And if his development is right, like he could help slow down opposing rushing attacks and open up some rush lanes for those edge guys. I like Rashad Lawrence. I think it's his year, year 3, 4th round pick. He's, you say he was the team captain, one of the team captains for that just star-studded LSU team on the defensive side of the football. I like Rashad Lawrence this year as my deep sleeper for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I like that. Rodney Gunter, once upon a time, a day 3 defensive tackle that took a couple years to get going, finally found his footing, was a nice starter for them and left and got a free agent contract elsewhere. that would be huge. And you mentioned it. Like, he played it at the best program in college football. He played it on the national championship team, anchored that defensive line. Like, we need to see that, because the Cardinals right now, I mean, you got Zach Allen nursing an ankle injury, but trying to reassure everybody, hey, I'll be ready for training camp. Okay, Zach, well, it's a contract year. And then you got JJ Watt, who, I mean, Jalen Blair just mentioned it. I think the true glass man is JJ Watt, and that's no disrespect, but he just can't stay healthy. We all want him to. We want to will it into play 17 games, please. But I don't think anything can be assured. I think right now, you were to poll the fan base and you get 13 games, 14 games from JJ Watt, everybody would sign up for it right now. So who is the staple among the Cardinal defensive linemen that you're like, push comes to shove, I got X player every Sunday ready to kick ass and take names? We don't really have that. We haven't had
Marcus Golden. Marcus Golden.
Yeah. As an edge rusher, I'm talking.
He's bringing his lunch pail every day. Yeah, he's bringing his lunch. Yeah, right. He's bringing it every day.
Yeah, but that's a great point, Damien. Of all of the players in the front seven, and I'll include the inside backers in this as well, because we hammered it home last week. Marcus Golden's the only player I have confidence in to show up every Sunday and be productive. Right? He's one of the most underpaid, I would argue, underrated players in the NFL. I don't know what I'm going to get from Zaven Collins. Isaiah Simmons could be in the front seven. He also could be in the back seven, dabbling a little in the secondary, right? Yeah, the other outside linebacker position is vacant. So, I mean, it's why most of our concerns up until a week ago, when the shit hit the fan with Rodney Hudson, said, go spend that money on front edge pressure. Go get a defensive tackle. Go get another edge rusher, whatever. Help the front seven. Well, now it's just like, hey, we may need you guys to pick up the slack, because we may have to go reinvest in a center or two in free agency now. So I'll go one more. I'll double down on the offensive line. Josh Jones, who, by the way, as we mentioned, he's the only offensive lineman under contract next year. I love Josh Jones coming out of Houston. I still think he can be a very nice long-term solution for this team at tackle. And I don't want to take Kelvin Beachum off the field, because I feel like Kelvin Beachum on certain Sundays is the Cardinals' best option at tackle. He outplayed DJ Humphries last year. It was fantastic 2 years ago. But I need to see Josh Jones. I need to know what we have, because I don't want to go into 2023 with him being a little bit of an unknown. I want to say, well, at the very least, Josh Jones, he can play that position. What we saw last year, and, I think there's a misconception, gentlemen. Well, if you play tackle, you can play guard. Well, not when you're, I don't want to call it a finesse tackle, but, I mean, Will Hernandez, say what you want about him. I follow him on Instagram. He's a huge man. He's got a huge chest. He looks like a power lifter, right? Josh Jones, a little bit more like lengthy. He's certainly athletic, but you have to have power.
Different body types.
Yeah, different body type, right? I don't think power when I think Josh Jones. I think supremely gifted athlete that can take on edge pressure. I want to see Josh Jones for a 46 game stint at tackle, because you know what? We talked about it. Go put on the Dallas tape in week 17 when DJ Humphries was out, I think with COVID, and Kelvin Beachum kicked to the left side, and look at what Josh Jones did at right tackle. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray, he was kept upright almost that entire game. I think that bodes well. I think they know that, and who knows? Maybe he's made strides at guard. I want to see him play tackle, because I really do think, and I wrote an article about it for the last site I worked for when the Cardinals drafted him. I said it was a gift from the football gods. I mean, you get Isaiah Simmons, DeAndre Hopkins, and Josh Jones in a singular draft. I was like, this is the next generation of Cardinal greats. I still believe Josh Jones can be that player for the Cardinals.
It just sounds like, Johnny, he needs to play. You got to get him out in the football field, and what combination does that work with? And who you kick, if he goes to guard, who you kicking over to center? You know what I mean? Like, how does that combination fit? And as I said, you got to put, just like there's grades on everything, you know what I mean? You got to consider when he played, who was he going against? Where is it their number one? There's content. You want to make sure that he, like, okay, he played solid, and then you're peeling it back another layer. Okay, who was it against? Maybe it was less performing, worse defense in the NFL. I mean, there's, as I said, context to everything. But from what you're saying, Johnny, I know you do your homework. It's fully vetted. I mean, I like what I'm seeing, and you just got to play him. He just has to play more with more experience. We'll see.
I'm going to make a quick prediction here. You guys can hold me to this. This time next year, 3 players that are going to be starting up front for the Cardinals. I do think they get something done with DJ Humphries. I think he's back in some capacity. I think they're hoping and praying now, given everything with Pugh and Hudson, that Will Hernandez pops for this team. and they at least can extend him another year. I think Will Hernandez is in the fold, and I think Josh Jones. I think those are 3 or 5 starting offensive linemen in 2023. They're all under 30, right? They've all been under the tutelage of Sean Kugler for the better part of 3+ seasons, right? That means a lot. You can be a high-performing draft pick and come in and be a first or second round pick, but I mean, you gotta be able to, pull your weight with, in my opinion, the best position coach on the Cardinals in Sean Kugler. So, Bo, do you think any of these late round offensive linemen, these rookies, can make an impact for the Cardinals this year, or is it bad news if any of them have to play?
No, I'd love to see Josh Jones. I mean, I thought, early on, I mean, as far as like next level stats, like he was dominant. Like as far as win rate, pass block win rate, he was awesome, and just kind of fell off a cliff. And maybe he was just put in position against some tough defenders. I mean, anytime you're going up against an Aaron Donald, that's going to ruin your stats and how you perform. So I'd love to see him. I think, it's just the more, as Damien said, the more he gets out there and gets reps and gets plays, he's going to get more comfortable, because I think when he played at Houston, he was dominant. Like there wasn't a tackle that graded higher in Pro Football Focus's entire time tracking this when he was drafted. But there was like some technique flaws and something the Arizona Cardinals have been, concerned about. And we saw a little bit of that on display last year. But yeah, if you can get him up to snuff, and you can start to continue this continuity with the offensive line, that would be huge for this team going forward, especially when you're going to lock Kyler Murray into the biggest contract in franchise history. Real quick, wrapping up our conversation about Cardinal sleepers, I saw what Charles Davis, a very respected football mind, said about Josh Jackson, the guy that they just signed, the cornerback who was a second-round pick, had a first-round grade at one point out of Iowa, a unanimous All-American. Huge season for the Hawkeyes. He's going to get an opportunity potentially to play outside. I don't know if he fits, Vance's man-to-man, system, more of a zone guy, Damien, but he could be somebody very, just signed him, had to try out at minicamp to even make this roster and get a chance at another spot in the NFL. And then AJ Green, I think, is flying under the radar. He could, I know it might not qualify for our conversation, but with the absence of D-Hop, we're talking Hollywood, we're talking Rondell Moore. I think we're forgetting about a guy who had 800 yards receiving last year in AJ Green.
Guys, with just great point, Bo. Who do you think has before the first 6 games? Could it be that AJ Green has more yards than Hollywood Brown? Could that happen?
I think so.
I think it's a reality, and I think if it does, it's a good thing. No, no, Johnny.
Did you guys see AJ Green at the end of the year?
You should have seen AJ Green in practice. I mean, he looks spry. He looks fresh, and he's gonna, as a guy that's gonna be 34 years old, what's gonna bode well for him.
If AJ Green outperforms Hollywood Brown this year, then the season has officially gone in the toilet. It's a toilet season. Flush it down. Get the plunger out. If AJ Green's 34-year-old corpse trotting out there is outperforming what equates to your first-round pick and best friend of your quarterback outside of injury, and I like it. This is not anti-AJ Green propaganda. I want to give Keim his due diligence and his credit, because they did not go in and just sign AJ Green and then skip receivers in the draft. They doubled down. Don't even get me started on that. But and he's a nice contingency. I would rather see Antoine Wesley play. Rondell Moore needs to get, his looks, especially.
No, I don't want to see Antoine. No, I don't. I disagree with that. I think AJ Green is even at his age.
But Antoine Wesley was better than AJ Green at the end of the year.
Guys, Rondell Moore has to be a major piece of this offense. Coming in the second round, what you think of the expectation of a second round pick? That transition. He didn't play obviously through the COVID or injuries, whatever. But a second round pick, you expect that guy to be a splash player and come in and maybe take off where Christian Kirk left off. You don't want Hollywood Brown to duplicate those numbers because you're expecting bigger things, because you're expecting more to be that guy, Christian Kirk. So to me, whether it's however they create plays, whether it's the return game or, whether it's lateral passes or even him at running back, finding ways to get him the ball is going to be important, but he has to do his thing and make people play, make plays as well. Playing in the NFC West and playing against the AFC West isn't the same as playing in the Big Ten. But what I will say is when I saw a little bit of Rondell, he did, show some spark, but can he sustain it through the year? Because dating back to college, guys, you add him to the list. Has he played a full season either? So.
Yeah. When Johnny says things like Antoine Wesley's better than AJ Green, I think, man, he's been just dipping into the OGs too much, man. Step away from the gummies, my guy. I mean, even though we're excited about OGs, they've got their seasonal flavor, pina colada, the perfect pineapple creamy coconut blend that's just in time for those summer road trips and pool parties. And speaking of pool parties, yeah, OGs is taking over the Maya Day Club in Scottsdale this month, June 25th. Johnny's going to be there. I wouldn't be surprised if DA's making himself available to be there. I know our PHNX
Don't put
crew
my body to
gonna be
shame,
there.
Damien. Damien's going to come, and he's going to flex on me. One former running back to another. I've been trying to be in the lab getting like Damien, but if he tries to square me up at this party Saturday, we're going to have problems future of the show.
All I'm going to say, John, is that your mustache gives you ultimate respect. So,
Thank you.
Know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't try you, bro. Like,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you definitely want to hang out with some of the PHNX crew, including JV and DA, check out OGs for more information online at ogsbrands.com, on Instagram. Of course, it's a must follow at OGs Brands. You can also find their products, your local dispensary. Must be 21 years or older to purchase.
Yeah, one of the reasons I feel good about partying this weekend, number one, I got my wife's permission. Number two, I got my COVID shot. So I want everybody to be happy and healthy, not only for Saturday with OGs, but moving into this season when we've got a ton of fun stuff on tap with PHNX Cardinals. The tailgates we're going to be so off the chain, but make sure you get vaccinated so you can come party with us, right? I don't want somebody hacking and coughing and sneezing all over my Four Peaks, right? I want to be able to relax and have a good time and watch a Cardinals dub. So it's time for some screenshots presented by the Arizona Department of Health. COVID-19 vaccines are free. Go get one right now. They're free for everyone 5 and older. Those 12 and older are now eligible for the booster. Visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for a location near you. Again, visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine for a location nearest to you. All right, gentlemen, quickly, rapid fire before we put a bow on this one. What do you believe the Arizona Cardinals need to do at the center position right now, today? Not tomorrow, not yesterday, but right now. Damien, I'll start with you.
They need to hit the market, make something happen, call somebody and get them in-house, whether it be workouts or I think they need to be scouring all their resources for talent, whether it's, free agent or available, veterans. So do it all. Find out the best, they're about to invest all this money in Kyler Murray. They need to protect him, Johnny.
Make sure. Cliff said that Lecidius Smith was working out at center. I think that might be your better option than Justin Pugh. Keep him at the guard spot. Make sure Lecidius prepares like he's going to start, but that better not be their only option. As DA said, hit the market. I think Sam Mustipher from Chicago could be an option. A guy that played all the snaps pretty much for the Bears last year. He's going to lose his job to a rookie. Not the greatest, but this is where the market's going to be right now. As I mentioned, that shotgun snap percentage is huge for the Cardinals. That was a team that was in the shotgun a lot too. He might be a guy. He's a Notre Dame product. As I said, the Cardinals love team captains. He was a team captain for the Golden Domers. Might be a guy that could be a reclamation project coming and getting an opportunity. If not, if there's something with JC Treader, I'm shocked he's not on a roster right now. What's the reason for the red flag? If you can get through to him, then that's probably your best option.
I agree. Let's get JC to AZ. Pocket full of Benjamins. This mustache did not come from
Benjamins.
Party City. Benjamin. No Party City. There ain't no Party City in Maricopa. You ever been here? Jalen Blair, quickly. Pugh said it's the center's responsibility to make the calls. That will be too much for Smith in year one, especially when he's never played center before. I agree. I don't think we want to see, with all due respect to any of the rookies that were drafted in the 6th and 7th round, to be playing this year. Yeah. No. Position room. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. By trade. Do you think you need to trade to get one? Is it that bad?
Double down. Invest more resources. Here's the problem with that, Jose, and I would agree if there was a player to be had. Trading for is kind of like trading for a tackle or pass rusher. Teams need that position, so they don't just have a surplus. Nobody has a surplus of quality centers to be had, I don't think. And so I think the Cardinals' best option, they've got San Francisco waiting in the wings too. Alex Mack retired. I don't know if they've got somebody else in their pipeline. Doesn't sound like it. They were hoping he'd be back. Just, it's a very frustrating scenario. And again, we're not, stating definitively Rodney Hudson is done with the Cardinals. He's retiring today, but that's where the winds are blowing. I would tell you definitively, don't expect him for this year or beyond. I think he's played his last snap for the Arizona Cardinals, but we have not recorded our last show for PHNX Cardinals because this train keeps moving throughout the offseason. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. For Bo Brock, Damien Anderson, I'm Johnny Venerable. We will see you mañana. Bye, everybody.